Hey guys, I'm excited to see everybody today. I'm excited to be back. We took a little hiatus last week and went offline as we should have. So I'm excited to be back and to talk to you guys. My favorite group for Wednesdays. Cover our conversations this week, and this week we're honoring what is a very important thing, I think, in our timeline as far as celebrating pets, and that is Shelter Cat Month. So all of June is Shelter Cat Month, and honestly, I think it's really it's such an important thing to talk about because shelter cats are, one, amazing and very important, right? But two, I think a little bit misunderstood. And so today we thought we would jump in and have a little conversation about the Purrfect Shelter Cat and just learning a little bit about what is different about shelter cats in the shelter as opposed to bringing them home, what that might look like. So we're going to jump into all that. We're going to give everybody a little time to get on here. Make sure you're saying hi to me in the chat box. Tell me where you're from, who are you watching with, what's your kitty's name. And questions, of course, ask questions for me in that chat box. If you have a shelter kitty that you have a question about, or if you're thinking about getting one, let me know there in the chat box. I guess that's a really important thing too, is just talking about thinking about getting one. Sometimes I think we might get a little impulsive. And there's some really cool things now people offer at a lot of shelters called pre-adoption counseling. And so pre-adoption counseling is something I highly recommend if you have it in your area. If you don't, ask your shelter about it. I think it's something they should try to offer if they possibly can. But it's just an opportunity for people at the shelter to ask you questions about you, your family, your lifestyle, and match you up with a really great pet in the shelter. And part of the reason this works so wonderfully is the fact that they get to know these shelter pets the best. And they get to know their real true personality as pets get comfortable with people. And I mean, if you think about it, the saying you only get one chance to make a first impression feels really unfair if you're a shelter cat, doesn't it? Because they might only get a blip, a half a second to catch your eye, to do something cute enough, or maybe just exist in a cute enough way for you to stop and decide that they're going to be the one for you. And boy, that is really tough, isn't it? And if they're not in an environment where they're set up for success, where they can be their best cat self, how are you going to know their best cat self, right? And so a hidey kitty or a shy kitty might not be any of those things once that kitty comes home, has all of the resources that they need, and can be themselves. Now, that being said, we have come galaxies in the shelters. I mean, I have to say, I see beautiful shelters out there, beautiful rescues, beautiful foster families who are really, really providing wonderful resources. Hey, Christy, thanks for being here. So these shelters, these places, these are the best because they might be providing all of the resources you need to see these kitties being themselves. So what are those things? Toys, height, elevation within their space, right? Space to move around. Some places don't have those resources. And so as you move through, they might just be in a little cage. And if they're just sitting in a little cage in their potty box, like, you know, they can't be themselves. So we want to talk through a little bit about how to get to play with a shelter cat, know a shelter cat better, go about getting a shelter cat, and assessing really their personality in spite of the environment or the situation that they may be in when you meet them. And I think this is really important so that we can have great matches, because what we know is great matches lead to long-time, wonderful bonded relationships. Less than great matches can really inhibit the human-animal bond. And I have seen this happen with a lot of different families who think maybe they want a cat that is like higher energy, but they're a super busy family and they don't have as much time to put into it. Whereas maybe a geriatric kitty who wanted a little less interaction would have been the best case. So again, Pre-purchase counseling, I think, is one of the very best things I can recommend to you guys when you're talking about getting a shelter pet, first and foremost, if it's offered in the area. So who out there watching has shelter kitties? Christy, you have 3. Did you get them at the same time, or did you keep going back and did you go to the same shelter? I'm asking questions so I can drink too, you guys. This is about coffee and cats, and 2 of my favorite things, so I don't want to miss out on any of those. So let's dive in a little bit here to, think about some of these things. We're going to get into your comments. We're going to get into your questions. We're going to get into great lives for shelter kitties. And then I want to see all those brand new shelter kitties you get after cats and coffee. The other thing too, right, is COVID. So we've got tons of people out there getting cats who just got cats, who went into, quarantine with cats. And then what we also have is baby season, and you guys know it, right? They're already popping up. I was looking at like the local Facebook page the other day where I live, and they're like, does this kitten belong to anybody? I was like, you. There's no way that cat has a home as a little baby kitten, and they're popping up everywhere. And I'm thinking that is the same mama, and she's got kitties going throughout the county. So it is kitten season. So that being said, be careful. Watch in your parking lots at night. Check under dumpsters, things like that. Look out for those baby kitties because, they're out there this time of year. So it's a great time to get a kitten. And, just little marriage advice here I'd like to give unsolicited. Forgiveness is better than permission. With that, let's get into talking about shelter cats while they're sitting in the shelter, because what we know is they're not always going to be themselves. So like I said, if you're in a facility, consider what they're offering, consider what they have to be themselves. Ask the staff how long that cat has been there. Have they had enough time to adjust? They just got there yesterday, or they've been there for a few days. These cats are probably still really shook up and still trying to figure out what's going on, and they're not being their full kitty self. We also want to take into consideration the interactions that the volunteers and the staff have there. They're going to know the cats best. You can ask what type of temperament or behavior assessments that they do and what they do to temperament or behavior assess them. So there are lots of different ways to learn more about how cats do with kids, other animals, and people in general. And thorough behavior assessments can really give you a good idea of how the cat's going to interact within the household. The staff and the folks there get to know these pets the best. Like I said, one of the hardest things is when we just kind of judge on a quick walk by. But we also want to listen to our gut instinct, right? We really want to say, do we bond? Do we get along with this cat? I always recommend, of course, getting them out, playing with them, interacting with them, but understanding that there's going to be a little bit of a behavior shift as they get home and they adjust. So speaking of which, we'll talk a little bit about that getting home time frame when, they get out of the shelter environment, the stressful environment, the environment where maybe they've had a food change, where maybe they've had recent medical care, where maybe they can hear barking dogs, where maybe they aren't able to get height, all of these things that are going to cause stress and a lack of a normal behavior and social interaction for cats. And we know that. The other thing that I see can be sometimes a struggle for people is when they get them home and, deciding on the cat, going through that process and meeting a cat that they love, deciding to bring them home. And then sometimes there being some personality conflict. So we want to talk a little bit about the time period, the adjustment, and what it takes for shelter cats to sort of come out of their shell and to settle in at home and what to expect in that process. So kind of a what to expect when you're expecting a shelter cat. Because I think sometimes we put expectations on our animals and we often anthropomorphize, and they'll say they don't like us or they're unhappy, or we have this great expectation that they're just going to come out of the carrier, pop out, be excited, be happy, understand and interpret how much that you love them and are there to give them the best life ever. And what they're really saying is just everything smells new, everything looks new, everything feels new. I am way sensory overloaded and I need to process. So we want to keep the fact in our minds. We want to remember that this is going to be a process for our cats to adjust. And generally, I tell folks we're looking at like a 2-week adjustment period. So when you bring a cat home, I would expect a period of approximately 2 weeks before the cat is fully adjusted and ready to take in everything that the house has to offer. So what we want to do is make sure that we're preparing the house ahead of time for a space for our cats, a bedroom, if it's a tiny kitten, maybe a bathroom, but bathrooms they're not my favorite choice. They generally, windows are only really high up. They can be harder to get to. They don't have a ton of space to roam around. We want to give them a good amount of space. And we want to allow them to get adjusted to the smells, get adjusted to the sounds, get adjusted to the environment in a space that they can mentally, physically, and emotionally handle, as opposed to this big giant house where they don't know where to hide, they don't know where to find safety, they don't know where to find elevation, and slowly introduce the rest of the house. When you have another pet, that's a whole other project. We've talked about that. We've had talks on that. We'll continue to do talks on that. But this is just talking about that one pet that we're bringing home and introducing in that time frame. The other thing is, especially if you have kids, it's important to remember we don't want to bombard cats, and we don't want them to learn that hands are toys or enemies. So really coming at cats like hands first, trying to pet at them, especially their face and head, it's really just not the way to go to make a really good first impression. Remember, when we say we only have one chance to make a first impression, that kind of goes with us for our cats especially too. They have a really good memory, and if the first interaction is like bad and scary and they don't love it, they're not going to dive into the next one expecting to have another great experience. They're going to have a picture in their mind that didn't go good the last time, and then that's what they have to go off of. So give them a tiny, comfortable, processable space. After they adjust to that period and they are comfortable and they do have their spaces, and you are continuing to swap out scents with towels, with blankets, they're getting used to the smell of the household. You're getting their smell out into the household. We can slowly introduce more space to them as they build confidence, as they have their own comfort, as they have their home base that they know they can go back to. Give them time to adjust, come out of their shells, and bond with you, and to take in and process everything that's new. Keep in mind, stress in cats can lead to several different health concerns that we want to keep a close eye on. So cats, especially who come from shelters, have a history of having herpes virus. It's not that big a deal for cats, but they can have breakouts under stressful situations. So watch for sneezing, vomiting, anorexia, any kind of eye discharge or nasal discharge. And these are things we're probably going to want to follow up with a veterinarian about always, okay? We want to make sure that these guys are flea-free, parasite-free, up-to-date on vaccines. Most shelters out there are so great nowadays about making sure these cats are in wonderful health and that they are, turnkey, ready to go when they get home to be introduced in a safe and effective way. We want to establish dental health, establish veterinary care, and make sure that these guys are going to be taken care of for a long time. And then the very last thing I want you to keep in mind, as you adopt a shelter cat or any other cat, as you kind of go through your life, just remember what their needs are in terms of cat-friendly spaces, in terms of what we know about cats, but then keep in mind they're all individuals and they're all going to remain individuals. So when our cats are in front of us, let's just find out what they know, what they love, what they need, and not always base it historically on our last cat or a cat you had growing up. Every cat's going to have different particular needs, even our shelter cats, and these needs might change throughout their life. The other thing I want to remind you is that cats live long lives. We don't all need baby kittens. Baby kittens are wonderful, and the shelters will soon be overridden with them. But try not to pass over that senior kitty who is, really needing as much love and as much care and as many happy days as they have left as a kitten. They're really important too, and I just kind of want to shout them out. So I want to jump into some questions and your comments here before we go through our Basepaws challenge for this upcoming week. We really want to, make sure that we are learning and growing and becoming the best owners that we can. So Joanna, I love this because she had a specific kitty in mind. And this happens a lot of times too, right? Look again, kind of hiding behind your question there. And so you looked around, you saw Wilson, asked for a meet and greet, and loved him immediately. Even though he wasn't the kitty you thought you went there, they've been getting love for 7 years. That's the best thing. Thank God for social media, right? I feel like it's totally given our shelter pets more of an opportunity. Haven has 3 shelter babies. Haven, thank you for 3 saved lives, all from the same shelter and different times for very different reasons. That sounds like these kitties have maybe had a hard life, and it sounds like they found a haven with Haven. Can I do that? Was that too funny, cheesy, terrible? Everyone's like, boo. All my numbers drop. People stop watching. Christy got those kitties at different times. 2 from a shelter we volunteer at. You volunteer, you're a hero. And 1 from another local shelter. That's another thing, guys. If you already have a cat and you're thinking to yourself, man, I don't need another cat, but I love to be around kittens. I love to be around puppies. I love to be around these animals, but I don't need more in my house. Go volunteer. They need you. They need hands. They need help. They need supplies. So June is Shelter Cat Month. Make sure you're getting out to those shelters and donating some of your time if you can, and if you can do it safe. Tamara's telling me she found a bonded pair and had to make sure they could stay together. You know, and it's funny because we say, oh, they'll do fine when you break them up. And they do great, but they do fine together too. And even though cats are not like pack animals as much, we know, when you have those bonded siblings, man, there's nothing cuter than like a kitty pile video and like constant, grooming. To that point, if you've got that going on, make sure you're tagging me over at Cat Coach Beckie on Instagram, because I want to see your kitty piles. I want to see all these smoochy, sleepy kitties. It's absolutely my favorite thing. So make sure I'm getting to get in on those. Alicia has a brother and sister bonded pair looking for a home. That's such an important thing because they are bonded, and it is lovely to have them together. So if we have people are looking, Alicia's got a bonded pair. They need a home. There's always cats needing a home this time of year. Shelters are full of them. Pets don't make great gifts, but if you are looking for a cat and you are feeling ready to make the lifelong commitment that comes with getting one, please head to your local shelter. Meet the one you love. Consider them all and expand your heart and home for a kitty. The last thing before I let you guys go for the rest of your day is we're talking this week's Basepaws Challenge. So you will find it no surprise that we are honing in on the fact that, as I told you, we're rocking Shelter Cat Month. So the very first thing, and it was kind of what I told you guys on here, I want to hear your meet cute. I want to know how you met your shelter kitty. So just like you guys are sharing here, head over to Basepaws. Make sure you're tagging Basepaws. Tag me, Cat Coach Beckie. Tell us your kitty meet cute, how you fell in love with the kitty of your life right now in the shelter. And let's honor those kitties. Make sure you use the hashtag Basepaws Challenge, and we will pick a winner. At the end of the week, when we pick a winner, you will either get a free DNA kit if you have a DNA kit, or you prefer, we'll throw some swag your way. Everybody loves swag. You get a t-shirt or a mug. So check out hashtag Basepaws Challenge over at our Facebook page, our Instagram. Make sure if you haven't already, you know about our coaching program. You can go to Coach My Cat, learn more about that. Get one-on-one time with an expert cat coach to help you and your cat lead healthy, happier lives. We'll see you guys next week. We're talking all about kitty acupuncture, so I'm looking forward to it. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you next week.